Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. This time I'm attempting a Bloodborne challenge run. I'm going to try and beat the game using only the Blades of Mercy. Now the Blades of Mercy are my favourite weapon in the game. They're super fast and they benefit a fast-paced hit and run style of gameplay, which is perfect for me. And I think they're made out of an asteroid too, so they've got the cool factor going for them. Now the downside to these weapons is that their reach is pretty dreadful. You have to be super close to be able to hit enemies, and given how fast some of the opponents in this game are, that's probably going to be a problem at a few points here and there. And their stopping power also isn't particularly good. So the rules for this one are pretty straightforward. The Blades of Mercy are the only weapon that we're going to use in combat. And yeah, that's it, only one rule today. And when I say weapon, I'm counting left-handed and right-handed weapons. I'm still going to allow some non-damaging items if I need them, like antidotes and numbing mist, but items that are primarily for damage, like Molotovs, are off limits. And even though we only have a single rule for this run, we're actually going to break it. Yeah, I know, we're about a minute into the video and we've already failed the challenge. Not a great achievement, but allow me to explain and hopefully it'll make sense. See, before we can use the blades, we have to obtain the blades. And that's not exactly an easy task. There's basically two ways that you can get them. One is by completing Eileen the Crow's questline. She's an NPC in the game. However, if we get them this way, we're not going to be able to obtain the weapon until pretty late into the game. So the second option is to, well...
Look at you sorry drunk. I'll string you up like the filthy beast you are.
Yeah, if we just kill Eileen, we can obtain the blades much earlier than usual. Now the problem is, she's way more powerful than us. We're at the start of the game and we're very low level. We inflict almost no damage on her. However, we can lead her to these beams where she'll promptly fall off and take a huge amount of damage. Now it's not enough to finish her off, unfortunately, but it is a big help. So now she's just hanging out in the sewer with the rats that are down there, and I really hate this mechanic. Why do the rats attack us and not her? She's a hunter too, so why do the rats give her a free pass? Whatever. No time to worry about that right now. Instead, what I'm going to do is lead Eileen away from the rats to make things a one-on-one fight. Then we might have a sliver of a chance at least. So we run outside the building and she's being super aggressive in the way that she chases me. I'm hoping if we lead her far enough away, she'll lose interest, turn around to start heading back to where she was, and then we can get in some free hits. Now this is a strategy that works on most enemies in this game. It takes ages to whittle their health down this way, but if you're struggling against a tough opponent, it can be a cheesy way to take them out. But Eileen is having none of that. She's just standing in the rancid sewer water, waiting for me to show my face, and the moment I do, she starts charging me again. So I decide it's just time to bail, and I start climbing up this giant ladder. And she even follows me up there. This woman is like the Terminator, relentless. So I'm waiting at the top of the ladder to get in some free hits when she reaches us, but she never reaches us. She just disappears halfway up the ladder. Then I climb back down the ladder and I get stuck on an invisible object, which I'm guessing is her, and then she just dies for some reason. So, victory achieved, I guess? Now, it's not the most impressive victory in the world, but it is a victory all the same, and taking her out like this means that we now can get the Crow Hunter badge. And when we have that in our inventory, we can then purchase the Blades of Mercy. But there's a problem. See, the blades cost 40,000 blood echoes. We currently have less than 10% of that. Now, how do you get more blood echoes? Well, you can sell items, but the main way is by eliminating enemies. And this is why we need to break our one rule. I'm going to allow myself to use a different weapon and other items while I'm grinding for the 40,000 echoes required to obtain the blades. I'm not going to fight any bosses or advance the story at all. We're just going to repeatedly run through the first area of the game, take out everything that we can until we have our 40,000 blood echoes. And it's gonna take a while, as I think the enemy that drops the most echoes in this area is the pig in the sewer, and it drops about 400. That's about 1% of what we need. And I know I could have done a New Game Plus and just started with the blade straight away, but New Game Plus makes the game even harder, and I'm sure I'm gonna struggle enough as is. So I think this is the better option for me. So anyway, strap yourselves in, we've got some grinding to do.
I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody, honestly. I've been living in my own head constantly, thoughts jumbled round, think I need a new lobotomy. Wait, all these thoughts are too negative. I don't wanna get lost in the sedative. Gotta show them what I got, I'm competitive. You know I'm about to go off, I won't let them win, I'll take a stab. I wanna chase a bag, I wanna weigh, I can change all the things I lack. I gotta face the facts, I got a taste in that. Got me obsessed with the rest, I got an itch to scratch. I'll give up everything. The venom in my brain, running from the past, wanna escape my pain. I just wanna be a better person, I deserve this, I just wanna break these chains. Always asking for greatness, true to myself, I never fake it. Seen no many ones that are so they get famous. And when I say the truth, most really can't take it. In spite of everything I've been through, I'ma make it. Fake friends, but on my downfall is toxic. Day one, started the outlaws for profit. Now all I do is write verses, no talking. All I do is put the work in, no option. This was everything I ever wanted, created a legacy off of me just being honest. And the fake ones hate, but it's all to no avail. They wanna see me lose, but you know I never fail.
And finally, after multiple hours of grinding while watching Pokemon challenge runs on YouTube, we finally have almost enough blood echoes. I can sell a couple of things to get us the last ones that we need, and I also pop a madman's knowledge that I found while grinding. This gives us 1 insight, which is enough to activate the doll, who will allow us to level up. Of course, you need blood echoes to level up, so we're not going to be able to do that straight away, but at least we have some company in the dream who isn't this seedy looking old man. Now let's grab those blades. I immediately upgrade them so they'll do more damage, plus I level up with what blood echoes we have left from selling items. And now let's go and begin the actual challenge. So from this moment on, it's Blades of Mercy only. I did open up all the shortcuts in the first area while grinding, so we can head straight to the first boss in the Cleric Beast. If we can beat this thing, it'll give us a good amount of blood echoes that we can use to level up before the much more difficult boss in Father Gascoigne. So let's do this thing. Now you'll see here I'm doing pretty bad damage. Beasts in this game are weak to serrated weapons and fire. However, our blades are neither serrated nor do they deliver fire damage. So it's going to take us significantly longer to take this thing's health down. And my plan here is just to stay in close and avoid the big arm on the beast. And you'll see when I run low on health, I back off, and this ends up costing me with the big guy ganking me with the aforementioned mutated arm. Well, the arm that's more mutated than the rest of him, at least, I guess. So the plan didn't really work there, panic set in. And I should say here, unlike Press Continue, Backlogs, and other channels that do FromSoft challenge runs, I'm not particularly good at these types of games. I do enjoy playing them, but I'm not hugely skilled at them. And as I get older, my reaction times are only getting worse. There's a reason I mostly play turn-based games, but I'm still going to give it my best for this video. Well, attempt 2 actually goes worse than attempt 1. I was dead literally before I even realised what happened. I jumped to the side and he just kind of flicked his mutant arm at me and I dropped dead. Pretty sad. Okay, attempt number 3. Let's do this thing for real this time. So I try to bait him away from the wall and stay behind him. There's really not too much he can do when you're at his rear, and I'm guessing that's why this arena is so narrow. It's to make staying behind him quite difficult. I also try not to be too greedy with my hits. I just want to get a couple in and then keep moving. Move in close, attack a few times, reposition, and repeat. And as he's getting to low health, you'll see I'm being super paranoid about healing. He took half my health with his wrist flick last time, so I'm desperate to avoid that again. And once more, you'll see that as I move away from him, he does punish me a few times, but eventually I'm able to best him. So third time's the charm, it seems. I return to the Hunter's Dream and put all our levels into skill. The Blades of Mercy scale primarily with the skill stat, so the higher that we raise it, the more damage our weapons are going to do. And I want to do as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible on our next opponent. So Father Gascoigne here has 3 phases. The first is Axe and Blunderbuss, and you'll see I have the tiny music box playing. This will stun him for a few seconds, but it doesn't actually damage him, so I'm considering it fair game for the purpose of the run. I picked it up while grinding our 40,000 blood echoes, as I was expecting this one to be a tough fight, and I figured I'm going to need every advantage I can get. In a normal playthrough though, I avoid this item like the plague. The quest it's involved in might be the single saddest thing in video games ever. Well, apart from Anthem's launch, of course. Now for his second phase, he'll change his axe to its two-handed form, but he will still whip out the blunderbuss at times. And the general strat is to dodge through his axe and then hit him a couple of times before moving again and avoiding his next attack. And we can rinse and repeat until he's in his third form, where he... Well, I guess you wouldn't like him when he's angry. Now, as horrifying as this thing is, your natural intuition is probably to run. I know that's what mine is. But that's actually a mistake. He has a lot of really punishing moves that propel him forward, and it's very easy to get stun-locked to death from these attacks. So I find you're actually better staying in close. If you do need to heal, dodge through his attack and then heal. And you'll see here, I do start to panic when my health gets low, and I move away to heal. I don't follow my own advice, and I end up paying for it big time. Now on the second time around, I think I'm better at dodging through his attacks to punish him, especially the blunderbuss. He got quite a few hits on me with that in the first time around. And even though I find his attacks more difficult to read in the second phase, the strat remains pretty much the same. We're just trying to dodge, attack, keep moving. And you'll see in his third phase, I once again lead him out of the graveyard. In his first 2 forms, the tombstones will provide cover from his blunderbuss, and they allow you to put space between you and him if you need it. But in his third form, he'll just knock the tombstones into rubble and they will barely slow him down. You, on the other hand, can still get caught on them. So I think it's better to engage him in open terrain, as at least then it's a fair fight. And I get really close to finishing this time, but once again I panic and I move too far away. I get caught in his combo and I'm gone in a few hits. And I'm really glad I didn't play this run on stream, because I was raging at this point. Just getting so close only to fall at the end. So frustrating. Now on the third attempt I mess up and I accidentally use the music box a third time before he's in his final form. What I was doing in the earlier attempts was using the music box once in each phase. The one-handed axe, the two-handed axe, and then the beast form. Now here I've used it 3 times already before we've even reached the beast form, which is really bad, and I'm not sure if it'll work a 4th time after he does transform, and to be honest, I don't really want to find out. See, the music box takes time to use, and it also takes a moment for Father G to react to it. Now, we're only talking a matter of seconds, but in a high-octane fight like this, seconds are going to count, and I don't want the uncertainty of waiting to see if he's going to be staggered or if he's going to come to rip my throat out. So instead I just charge in. I don't even leave the graveyard this time. I was really annoyed after that last attempt and I just wanted to punish this guy. So I'm just going in and I'm going to hit him with everything that I can. But yet again, the panic sets in and I retreat once more. And the same thing almost happens. He nearly traps me in his combo, but this time I am able to avoid it. And finally, we take this guy down. So once again, the third time is the charm. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with myself only taking 3 attempts. I thought it was going to take a lot more than that. This fight was easier than I was expecting, so I'm pretty pleased with that. And now it's off to old Yharnam. I spend more echoes to level up before we head there, and I'm glad I did because I end up losing a bunch of them in this area. It is a pretty crazy part of the game. There's a guy with a minigun trying to mow you down, there's another hunter coming for you, there's werewolf men charging you, and there's badly placed crows to attack you when you try to take cover from the gun. I really hate this place, it is super annoying. But regardless of that, I battle my way through and it's time for the third boss, the blood-starved beast. I remember the first time I played this game, this thing clobbered me at least 30 times. I was hopeless against it. I had no idea what to do. And the sad part is, it's actually one of the easier bosses in the game. At least it is once you know the trick. And the trick is to just dodge left. And honestly, that's probably what you want to do in 90% of circumstances in this game. But anyway, we dodge forward to his right and our left, avoiding his attack and punishing. He's not too scary in the first phase, and even if he does land a hit on us, which doesn't happen too often, Bloodborne has what's called the rally mechanic. And the way it works is that for a brief time after taking damage, you can restore your health by inflicting damage on enemies. So even if he does hit us, we can often get a lot of our health back just by attacking him, and that saves us having to use our healing items. Now the second phase is a bit more dangerous. He can poison us. I'm not really sure how he does it. I think some of his attacks just cause poison to build up on us. And we can easily avoid this. We just back off for a couple of seconds to let the poison dissipate before going back in to resume our attack. And unlike the previous bosses, putting space between you and the blood-starved beast isn't that dangerous. He does have an attack where he charges forward and covers a big distance, but it's very easy to see coming and then avoid it. His third form, however, is pretty annoying as he'll cause a lot more poison build-up. Even just standing near him can cause you to become afflicted with poison. And I don't even bother using antidotes to cure it, as he's just going to poison me again immediately anyway, so there's really no point. Instead, I just let the poison slowly deplete my health, and I just heal my HP as required. But this does end up costing me. See, look how little HP this guy has left. I mean, that's like nothing. One more hit, he's gone. But I've taken damage, and the poison is about to finish me off. And between trying to get distance to heal, avoiding his attacks, and get off the blood vial before my health reaches 0, it's all too much to manage and I go down. And the rage I felt here made Father G seem like a pleasant walk along the beach on a summer evening. I was furious at this. A single more hit and this floppy-headed scumbag was gone. Oh, it's so annoying. So I charge in again and I give it another go, and the annoying part here isn't really the difficulty. He's a fairly easy boss, it's just that we're not inflicting a great deal of damage, so whittling down his health takes a long time. And this time around I do use some antidotes as I don't want a repeat of last time, and also by using antidotes I can play more aggressively. We don't have to worry about backing off to let the poison dissipate, I can just keep attacking and heal the poison as required, which is going to save time. And this time around, we are victorious, so only 2 attempts for this boss. That's pretty good. And you'll see me frantically racing to the lantern here. I wanted to light it before the poison got me. See, once the lantern is lit, even if we die from the poison, we'll respawn at the lantern and can easily pick up our lost blood echoes. They're going to be in the same spot that we died, or around abouts. Now I could have just used an antidote and not died at all, but that honestly seemed wasteful. I am going to need some more of these later, so no point using one if I don't need to. With the blood-starved beast slain, a new area in contemporary Yharnam opens up to us. And you'll see this wolfman looking guy here. He's a nightmare to face if he notices you, so the best bet is to sneak up on him, perform a charged attack to stagger, and then capitalise with a visceral while he's stunned. And this is one of the rare times I'm using the blades in their one-hand form. They attack much faster in the two-hand form, but you can't do stagger attacks with them that way. So, through the power of cheese, this mini-boss is easily defeated. We can then unlock the gate in central Yharnam and proceed into the next stage of the game. Now I could face Vicar Amelia here, but I decide to head to the Witches of Hemwick instead, partly to gain more blood echoes so I can level up further before Amelia, and partly because we want the workshop tool that the witches are guarding. Now the big guys in the metal armour I don't even bother fighting. Usually I find the easiest way to take them down is to parry them with the gun and then hit a visceral, but we can't use the gun, and our puny blades I don't think are going to have near enough stopping power to even slow these bulky boys down, so instead we'll just run past them. And when I get to the witches, I immediately warp out with a bold hunter's mark. The reason for this is to employ some cheese to make the boss fight even easier than it normally is. See, while blood echoes are the game's main currency, there's also a second currency called insight. And having insight actually makes the witch's boss battle more difficult. So I return to the dream and spend all our insight, leaving us with 0. And at 0 insight, the witches won't summon the demon helper that they would otherwise call upon. And this thing's absence is going to make this battle significantly easier for us. Now, why didn't I sell the insight before going to the witches in the first place? Well, you actually receive insight just for discovering the boss. And this is the case for all bosses in the game. So we have to go in there once to get the insight that initiating the battle grants us, so that we could then sell it off and get rid of it. I know, it's complicated. Anyway, the game tells you there's only one witch, but once you damage her enough, a second one appears. And they can actually revive each other, so there's not much point in finishing one if the other still has full health. So we want to get them both to low HP before we deliver any final blows. This way we can take them both down quickly before one has the chance to revive the other. Now the problem with this strat is the second witch's health bar isn't displaying. It normally does after you hit her, at least I think it does from memory, but here, for whatever reason, it's just not showing up. And you'll see me doing weak attacks here just to test which one of the witches that I'm actually attacking. Now, since I can see the original witch's HP bar, I want to keep her on low health while I finish off the second one. And the best way to attack them is to do a staggering attack from behind and then deliver a visceral. They will teleport away once you do this, but without their demon allies, they're honestly pretty defenseless. Even when they teleport away, we can just go hunt them down and repeat the process. And this boss is an easy win for us. We can then grab the workshop tool from this poor soul and then be on our way. And the workshop tool allows us to equip Carol runes that are going to grant buffs to our character, so it's a really good item to pick up. Alright, so no more stalling, now it's time for the Vicar Amelia fight. And this boss is a weird one for me. Sometimes I'll go in and absolutely stomp her into dust, and other times I won't stand a chance and she just annihilates me. I think it really just comes down to what attacks the RNG decides she's going to use. And here on this first attempt, I get done in pretty quickly. She's able to take 2/3 of my health with a single blow. That's pretty brutal. I haven't been putting too many points into Vitality, which is our HP stat, so even though we're doing big damage, our character is a bit of a glass cannon. So let's give it another go, hopefully we do better this time. Now the strat here is similar to the earlier bosses we faced. We want to get in close as that's actually the safest place to be. However, staying behind her isn't that great of an idea with this boss. She does have attacks that can punish you if you're at her rear. So we just want to keep moving, circling around her at all times. You can cripple her limbs, which will stagger her and leave her vulnerable to a visceral attack on her head. And I think during the fight I do cripple her once or twice, but my positioning as well as the camera makes getting to her head in time to visceral seem like too difficult a task. So instead, when she's staggered, I just wail away on her, inflicting as much damage as I can the old-fashioned way. Amelia can heal, which is why I have the numbing mist equipped. Throwing one of those at her will prevent her from being able to rejuvenate HP, but she doesn't actually go for the heal once during the battle, at least not that I could tell, so I didn't need to use them. And sure enough, we're eventually able to take her down, so 2 attempts for this boss as well. I'm hoping I'll be able to beat at least one of them on the first try during this run, but it's definitely not going to be the next boss. See, with Amelia defeated, we can leave Yharnam and head into the Forbidden Woods. Now the first part of this area isn't too bad, as the main enemies are just basic villagers that we can deal with pretty easily. Now they are stronger than the villagers in the city, but they're still not too bad. The second section of the woods, however, is awful. We make it through the village and then into the deeper section of the forest, and it's riddled with snakemen. Yeah, I guess thin men are a thing in this game too. And there's also giant snakes that have ridiculous amounts of health. But truth be told, I actually find the snakemen worse than the giant boys. The snakemen are pretty fast, they also have good HP, and in my 6 years or so of playing this game, I've never really found a safe way to attack them at
close range.
Oh, I'm so glad I could work that meme into this video. But seriously, the snakemen can hit you from pretty much any direction. Even if you attack from behind, the snakes in their head can still whack you and stun lock you. Now I normally save most of my Molotov cocktails for these guys, as that seems to be the easiest way to defeat them. But given Molotovs are off limits on this playthrough, I opt for a different approach in this nightmare of a level. It's called run away from pretty much every enemy. Now it is worth noting that there are twin bloodstone shards in this area. We need these to continue to level up our blades to make them more powerful, so I do try to grab some on the way through, but I'm mostly avoiding the bad guys while I do it, at least as much as I can. Our super short range Blades of Mercy just aren't ideal for fighting these snakes, so it's better just to avoid them. And now for the boss battle, the Shadows of Yharnam. In my first playthrough of this game back in the day, these guys massacred me so many times I lost count. I ended up having to summon the NPC cooperators to beat them, as I just couldn't do anything to these guys. See, the way this boss works is there's 3 of them. One of them hangs back and shoots projectiles, one of them has a sword and is hyper aggressive, charging you at all times, and the third guy will kind of stay between the other 2, so he's ready to gank you if you target either of the other 2 for an attack. It's a really effective boss design in terms of the tactics that they use. I've found the best way to deal with them is by parrying the aggressive guy with the gun. You can then either visceral him or move in to attack one of the other 2 while he's temporarily stunned. It makes him seem a lot less dangerous, and the reason I struggled with these guys so much on my first playthrough is that I went nearly the whole game without being able to parry, and that deficit made this boss insanely difficult. So it seems I'm coming full circle. Just like in my first playthrough, I need to beat these guys without parrying. How far have I progressed as a player since that original attempt? Let's find out. Okay, that was anticlimactic. That was just a test run though. I'm sure I can beat them for real. Yeah, so turns out after 6 years I still suck. And these guys have beaten me so many times I'm actually running out of blood vials. Now I can't beat them when I have vials and I am able to heal, so having a shortage of vials is going to make beating these guys impossible. I mean, even more impossible than it clearly already is. So I decide I need to grind a bit to get some blood echoes. If not to level up, I can at least buy more blood vials and I can at least heal during the fight. And these guys were probably the boss fight I was worried about the most when beginning this run. I knew they were going to be a pain, so getting walled here isn't too surprising to me. Now we've got a couple of areas we can check out. There's Canehurst Castle, as well as the Nightmare Frontier. Now the boss at the castle is extremely brutal, so I don't feel like fighting him. Some people say he's an easy boss to beat, but I always struggle, so I decide we're going to hit up the Nightmare instead. I will make a quick note of this room in the university on our way to the Nightmare Frontier. It's a great spot to grind with the Blades of Mercy. You can run in, do a dashing heavy attack, and then retreat, and you can rinse and repeat this process to get a fair chunk of blood echoes with minimal risk of taking damage from the students. Now I only ran through this place once here, but it can be a good place to safely grind echoes with multiple runs through if you find yourself in need of gaining some levels. So on to the Nightmare Frontier proper. The werewolf guys, I think they're called silver beasts, we can easily take out. And there are 2 hunters that ambush us here. I engage the first one and inflict good damage, and when his buddy arrives, I fall back. The plan is to lure one of them to us so we can fight them one at a time, and that's exactly what happens, as the second hunter just comes running on down to meet his demise. We can then head back to the first one and finish our business with him. And I don't think our character is over-leveled for this part of the game, but our weapons might be, and that's why we're doing such good damage to these guys. Now, while I'm playing through this area, I'm trying to be ultra-conservative. It's not just that I want loot and blood echoes from enemies, I also want to avoid using too many blood vials. The whole point is to gain echoes to buy more vials, so if I'm having to use vials to acquire those echoes, it really defeats the purpose of the exercise. Now the Nightmare Frontier is a fairly wretched area, so making it through without healing is easier said than done, at least for me. Most of the Bigfoot guys who throw boulders, I'm just going to run past since dealing with them is more effort than it's worth. And same thing with the squids in the Poison Lake. The Poison Lake restricts your movement, and there's boulder boys lobbing rocks at you while you're trying to get through it, so it's better just to race through the area as quick as we can. Then there's a Winter Lantern. These things may be the single most annoying enemy in the game, so we're definitely going to avoid that thing too. And after some time we unlock the shortcut to the boss, and I should say here there's a bunch of loot that I've skipped in this area because getting it is just too difficult. It's not worth the risk of dying or having to heal, so I'm just going to ignore it. I cash in all the blood echoes we've acquired either on blood vials or on leveling up. This way if we die in the boss battle, we won't have to worry about losing echoes. We can't lose what we've already spent. And now here we go, it's Amygdala time. And here we want to stay about medium distance away from her, as this is the best way to bait the attack where she slams her head to the ground. We can then race in and attack her head to inflict decent damage. Getting in close with this boss really doesn't help, as attacking her legs causes almost 0 damage. We need to target the arms or the head, and if we inflict enough damage to her head, she'll stagger and we can perform a visceral on it, which is going to do big damage. However, this causes her to enter her second form and she flattens me pretty quickly. I really should have healed, but I was honestly just testing things in this first fight. It's been a while since I've played this game, and Amygdala is a boss where patience and scouting her attacks will pay off much more than pure aggression. So I just needed to remind myself of what exactly her attacks were. We'll give it another go for real this time. Well, I run in and I instantly get stuck on one of these weird totem things and get punished for it. So that's a pretty bad way to start the fight. But this brings me to an important point, that while we're baiting the head slam, we also want to direct Amygdala's attacks to the totems. If she hits them, she'll destroy them, which will mean we won't get stuck on them anymore. Now shortly after, I once again get stuck, this time in the corner of the arena. And the arena is smaller than it seems when you take Amygdala's enormous reach into account, so it's easier to get trapped than you might think. And when she fires her lasers, the laser itself won't actually hurt you. Instead, the ground will explode shortly after the laser passes, and that's what will do you in, like it did to me right here. So on the third attempt, I'm really trying to avoid getting stuck in a corner, and here she decides to spam laser attacks, which means I can't really do much to her. But eventually she does go for the head slam attack. Her hands will do more damage to you if they hit you in her second phase, as demonstrated by the way they glow purple. but the basic strat is the same. Stay at mid-distance, bait that head slam, and then run in and punish. I should also say here, I'm trying to beat her with minimal healing. I'm expecting the Shadows of Yharnam to take another 50 plus attempts, so I don't want to waste all those vials we bought on this boss. We need them for the next boss. Now she does a few leaping attacks, which she'll do pretty often if you end up too far away or behind her. Now you can avoid this attack by literally just walking forward, but my nerves are way too shaky for that, so I just time it right and dodge through instead. It's not too hard to do once you've had some practice. And then we've done enough damage that Amygdala is ready for her third phase, where she rips off her own arms to use as fly swatters against us. Yeah, I guess we made her pretty mad. And this is where she gets really dangerous. She will still do the same head slam attack, but it's much more threatening now as her reach with those removed limbs is insane. Now I end up avoiding a lot of it by being somewhat close to her when she goes for the slam, but I cannot stress enough that this was completely accidental. I just started dodging frantically whenever I thought she was about to slam, and through very good luck I kept surviving. Now in some instances I can't reach her head, so I attack the arms instead. It's better to do less damage on the arms than no damage at all. And same thing with her jumping attack. If she lands in the right spot, you can get some hits in on her limbs, but I would only recommend doing this if the opportunity arises. Don't get greedy and try to force it, as you may end up getting squashed. And then, after using only 2 blood vials, Amygdala is slain, so that's more blood echoes for us. I think I've bought close to 50 blood vials by the time I return to the Shadows of Yharnam. I've also leveled up a bit, so we'll be inflicting more damage. Let's see if we can do it now. Now my basic strat here is to rotate through each of the 3 shadows, and we want to get all of them down to roughly half health. Concentrating on just one of them to take them out may seem like a good idea, but it's actually a mistake, and I'll show you why in a moment. And we basically just want to be constantly dodging, getting 1 or 2 hits in when it's safe, and then dodging again. Staying still in this fight, unless it's to parry, is usually a death sentence. And sometimes the fireball guy will get super aggressive and start flinging them at you constantly. This is when we want to target him, inflict some damage, and he'll usually cool off a bit. The candle guy is also really dangerous. His fire breath can stun lock us to death, so we want to keep our distance from him unless we have a reasonably safe opportunity to attack him. This guy is really bad news. And in this attempt, I do indeed get stun locked to death. He's really obnoxious. So let's try again. Now I am doing good damage on these guys, but they're also inflicting big damage on me. And then have a look at what happens when Sword Boy falls under half health. All 3 guys transform into their second stage. Now this is why you want to target all 3 of them equally in the beginning. Once one of them falls to low health, just under half, they will all transform. So you want to inflict as much damage on all of them as you can while you're still in the first phase of the fight and things are at their easiest. These guys get a lot more dangerous in the second phase. Fireball Bro now hurls explosions our way, and the sword guy has a tentacle style attack that has massive range, and he seems to use it all the time. The Candle Bro honestly doesn't become too much worse. He does have a ranged attack as well, but he doesn't seem to use it very often. The other 2 guys, however, become way worse than what they were. So given the first phase of the fight is over, I decide to just go ham and take out the sword guy as fast as possible. His reach attack is incredibly annoying with how aggressive he is, so I'm just going to focus on him, and he goes down. I must have faced these guys about 10 times by this stage, and I've never made it this far. I've never taken one of them out. But now, with only 2 of them to face off against, this fight is effectively over. These guys are done. Alright, that felt good, and it didn't even take 50 attempts like I expected. Now we can make our way to the next boss, who is also going to be extremely difficult. We need to make our way through Bergenworth before that though. There's honestly not much to say here. This area is probably the most disappointing in the game given how small it is. I think it could have been a lot more interesting. It's literally just one building and you can avoid pretty much every enemy here quite easily. There is an NPC hunter who is quite annoying, mostly because of her huge HP pool, but she doesn't cause us much problems. It's just a matter of reading her attacks and moving in to punish when the opportunity arises. And if we thought Gurman in the dream was seedy, check out this guy. He tells us to literally jump off a bridge, and us being the big-brained hunter that we are, we immediately go for it. So now we've got Rom the Vacuous. Her boss battle is another that's broken into 3 phases. The first phase is super easy. You just need to kill the baby spiders and then you can wail away on her and she's pretty much defenseless. And you don't actually have to kill the little ones, but they'll probably gank you if you ignore them, so I usually take them out. Now in the second phase, Rom does up the ante though, and she starts shooting icebergs from the sky. Yeah, this is a weird game. So the strat is to avoid the icebergs and then hopefully take down at least one spider before she shoots more icebergs at us. And the part that's difficult here is you need to keep an eye on Rom as much as possible. The iceberg attack is easy to see coming, but keeping your focus on the little spiders that you're targeting, as well as watching what Mama Rom is doing, is the difficult part. And here, I get so wrapped up in eliminating spiders, I forget to heal and they actually take me out. So how about attempt number 2? Well, I barely even reach her in the second phase when she obliterates me with the icebergs. And the problem here is once one of them hits me, I get stun locked and the following icebergs very quickly destroy me. So I try a few more times, but it's just not happening. Our hunter is just too squishy. So I decide to return to the university and do some farming in that room with the students that I mentioned earlier. I gain a couple of levels, increase our HP, and attempt the boss again. And a couple of levels may not sound like much, but I'm not getting stunned by the icebergs as much anymore. Even if one of them does hit me, I'm usually able to escape before the follow-up attacks take all my health. And we even reached the third phase of the fight here, so leveling up has definitely made a difference. And the third phase isn't too different from the second phase. Rom has an extra attack where she'll roll onto her back and raise icebergs from below the water. So it just adds to the chaos of the fight as it's one more thing that you have to keep track of. If the spot you're standing on turns a bluish white, you want to get out of there ASAP. We take down all the babies and I can then focus on Rom. And here, we want to stay away from her head as she can clobber us with it. But that's easier said than done. She's surprisingly fast for a massive blob with tiny little legs. And she also has an AoE attack that she blasts me with. I don't remember seeing this one too often before. But despite these extra attacks, without the younglings to defend her, she's not too tough and we soon take her down. Now with Rom gone, the pale blood moon is revealed, which means we're entering the end game. We have to travel to Yahar'gul, the unseen village, and this place sucks. There's Amygdalas all over the buildings, and this one in particular loves shooting lasers at us. It's really obnoxious. Not to mention the enemies can be pretty tough as well. The good part is there are bloodstone chunks to be found, which we can use to upgrade our Blades of Mercy even further so that they'll do more damage. So this place does have its perks. Now there are 3 hunters in this area that will gang up on you. I lure them backwards and then I'm able to loop around them and progress forward, not having to engage in the fight. They're just way too annoying to be worth the trouble. If you can isolate them and face them one at a time, they're not too bad, but they're really good at ganging up on the player, so I don't think it's worth it here. And soon we arrive at the One Reborn, one of the most messed up looking specimens I've ever seen. It's actually a pretty easy fight though. The first trick is to ignore the boss and run upstairs instead. There's 6 witches around the balcony that will buff the boss. I don't know specifically what they do, as I always eliminate them first, but I do know they'll only make the fight harder than it needs to be. So we want to get rid of them, and once they're done and dusted, we can then focus on the big blob of despair himself. We're going to attack his limbs, and we want to move away from them when they start glowing red. They'll unleash an AoE attack on us if we don't. Also, once he starts vomiting, it's usually a good idea to retreat up the small steps and under the balcony. The whole area he's in can fill with the vomit, but staying just this little bit higher will keep us safe. He'll also summon dead bodies from not even God knows where, and drop them right on top of us, like they just fall out of some interdimensional portal. And while this is all really disgusting, it's not actually too bad from a gameplay perspective. As long as we keep moving, we'll avoid the corpses that he's dropping. And what makes this boss easy is that most of his attacks are so slow that they're extremely easy to predict and then avoid. And it takes a little while, he's got a fair bit of health, but I do defeat this boss on the first try. So finally, we've taken one of them down on the first attempt. It took me long enough, but we've done it. And now it's on to the Nightmare of Mensis. And this place is a real gauntlet. It's not even worth killing the silver beasts here unless you have a fire weapon. If they don't die from a fire weapon, worms will burst out of their corpse and they're super annoying. So I'm just going to run past these guys. Then there's a giant brain inflicting constant frenzy on us for as long as we're in its sight, so we need to sprint past that and the silver beasts, only to encounter more boulder throwers. Now we can avoid them, and then there's an army of spiders. I run past them initially and get through a doorway that's too small for the big mama one to follow us through. Then I obliterate the younglings, and the mama one I'm just going to ignore, she's not worth the effort. And then we come across another hunter NPC, and just like all the others, this one goes down. Well, all the others excluding those 3 in Yahar'gul, I guess. Anyway, we eventually make it to not only the worst boss in the game, but one of the worst bosses in any game. This fight is one of the most cringe-inducing things I've ever seen that didn't have a Disney logo on it. I mean, just listen to this guy.
Ah, cause. Or some say cosm.
And you want to know what's even better? He carries on like this for pretty much the entire fight. And speaking of the fight, he's a bit of a puzzle boss. You have to chase him into a particular room before you can begin phase 1 of the battle. Now when you've played this game as much as I have, the puzzle is committed to memory, so we can easily lead him into the room, and there's 2 skeletons on strings that will awaken to help old Mikolash out when we do. But for some reason, a 3rd skeleton from outside the room follows us in. I don't think I've ever had this happen before. Now trying to avoid 2 skeletons is bad enough. With a 3rd one in there, I've been thrown well off balance and I go down pretty quickly. Alright, let's try that again. I take out the skeleton just outside the door this time. It will revive itself before long, which is why I normally don't worry about these things, but we just need enough time for the door to close behind us and lock this thing out. And this time, with the correct number of skeletons in the fight, things go very differently. Now, Mikolash can hit you with a tentacle arm type of attack, but that's about it. So as long as you can avoid that, plus the skeletons of course, he's a pretty easy fight, at least in the first phase. But this is where the real depravity begins. See, to enter phase 2 of the fight, you have to run further through the area and find Mikolash all over again. And Mick Cage here feels the need to continue his yammering on and on while you do it. Now this in of itself is just annoying, it's not too bad. I'd prefer not to have to listen to this man's insane ramblings, but I can live with it. No, see, the real issue is that while he's talking, the button to pick up objects stops working. Yeah, you heard that right. If an NPC is talking in this game, your controls stop functioning correctly. So I'm trying to pick up this item before the skeleton catches up to me. But by hitting the X button, I'm just progressing through Mikolash's dialogue. I cannot pick up the item. and then something about spamming the X button causes the character to sit down on the ground during the boss fight. So needless to say, the skeleton catches me and I'm dead. And I was irate in this moment. When I say this boss fight sucks, I don't mean it's hard, I mean that it's actually broken. I mean, just look at attempt number 3. Mikolash glitches out and doesn't enter the room for the first part of the fight. Instead, he just stands in the doorway, spamming the same attack, making it extremely difficult to hit him. Now, eventually we do get him into the room and we pummel away on him thereafter. So then as I'm heading towards the second section of the battle, I decide I'll spam the X button to complete his rancid dialogue before we get to the item I want to pick up. Once we trigger the dialogue, I go backwards to get rid of it before we proceed to the item. And sure enough, hitting the X button rapidly like this again causes the stupid emote to trigger. And you want to know the really messed up part? His dialogue starts right before you reach the item. It's like the developers did it on purpose to troll you into getting ganked by that skeleton. This is awful game design. A player should never die just because the controls decided to stop working. If the Shadows of Yharnam demonstrate effective boss design, this broken excuse of a gimmick battle demonstrates some of the worst possible boss design. So finally, we've made it to the second part of the battle. You need to drop down this hole to begin the second phase. Now normally as soon as you drop down, Mikolash will blast you with an attack that can potentially one-shot you even when you're at a high level. Yeah, it's just another beginner's trap. But for whatever reason, he doesn't go for it this time. Now I have no idea why, but I'm going to take it. And by this point, I was well and truly sick of this guy's nonsense, so I'm not pulling any punches. I hammer away at him with everything that I've got. You just want to stay close to him, strafe around him, and punish. If you move too far away, he will go for that AoE attack that I mentioned before, which you want to avoid, so getting close and just try to avoid his close range attacks, they're not too bad. And with that, he's gone. Let's move on from this nonsense and never speak of Mikolash again. In the next section, I need to make it past 3 winter lanterns. Now taking them on is going to be a huge pain, so I opt just to run past. Now on the first attempt, the camera gets stuck on the winter lantern. This means I can't see where I'm going and I get ganked. Awesome, I'm really loving this game right now. This is fantastic. Alright, so second attempt, we make it by them, and then I can finish the giant brain that was inflicting frenzy on us earlier. All I have to do is pull this lever, and it goes for a one-way trip. And with the brain gone, we're able to grab an awesome piece of loot that's just underneath where it was. The Blood Rock. This will allow us to upgrade our blades to maximum level, plus 10. And now we're ready for the final boss, Murgo's Wet Nurse. And this one is actually one of the easier bosses in the game, if I'm being honest. We want to stand behind it as we're less likely to get hit by its many arms this way. We'll probably still get hit, but not as often. Then once we inflict enough damage, it'll cover the area in a dark fog, and here we want to start running around the arena in a big circle. Yeah, that's our best defense strategy, running around in a circle. It works, I don't know what to say. See, the boss will appear out of the dark to try and pummel us, but as long as we keep moving at a decent speed, we can avoid all of the attacks. You'll see here though that I'm not nearly fast enough. I'm taking a lot of damage. I am not avoiding all of the attacks. And the thing is, normally when I play this game, I've defeated all the optional bosses and the DLC before I take on the Wet Nurse. So I'm usually well over level 120 by this point in the game. But during this run, where I've only reached around level 60, things are proving much more challenging. No one could have predicted this outcome, I'm sure. And the main thing here is stamina. Having less of it means that I can run around in a circle for a shorter amount of time before I need to stop to let the stamina regenerate. So this means I'm left vulnerable to attacks a lot more often than I otherwise would be. I'm also doing less damage being at a lower level as well. Normally I hit this thing so hard it only gets a chance to do the Black Fog attack once before the fight is over, but not on this occasion. We have to survive multiple rounds of this stuff. Despite the challenges and the setbacks though, we do persevere, and soon enough this monstrosity has been defeated. Now this was also a first attempt victory, so that's pretty cool. We then return to the Hunter's Dream for an appointment with the seedy old man. Now for the small price of our head, he'll let us wake up from this horrible nightmare. Now you can resist and fight him instead, and there's also another secret boss battle after Gurman if you've met certain conditions in the game, and maybe some people want to see me do that, but I never said I was going to beat every single boss, only that I would beat the game, which I've done. And I actually find this ending the best of the 3 that you can get. Waking up from a bad dream and putting all of this horror behind us, well, that's what I would want if I was the hunter. So there you have it, we've beaten Bloodborne with only the Blades of Mercy. It honestly wasn't as tough as I thought it would be. The shadows were definitely the trickiest boss, which I expected, but I thought I'd struggle a lot more than I did. But hey, a win's a win, so let's take it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider doing the usual things of liking, commenting and subscribing. And in particular, let me know if you'd like to see more FromSoft games on my channel. So that's all from me. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great day.
We ain't got no time to be complacent. You only got one life to go make a statement. Everything you want, it'll all be waiting. So put your mind to it and you can become greatness. So don't quit, don't stop, push through it. You got dreams, one life, go do it. Make moves, improve, keep doing. A new life, new you can choose it.
Watch me.